All right, guys, we are going to be reacting to Germany insane military comeback. We're going to react to this video. Make sure you guys subscribe to my channel. Let's go.
Has vowed to build the strongest army in Europe.
Germany is nervous.
More troops, more equipment, more rapid deployment.
This year's defense budget of Germany exceeds $100 billion, the largest NATO budget excluding the United States. This came after years of low spending, and it stands at just over 2% of their GDP. But their target is to reach 3.5% before the end of the decade. Germany's posture in Europe is swiftly changing. After World War II, they developed a unique strategy for peace, which was based on the idea that if you create economic ties with your adversaries, it would lead to peace, because it would become too costly for either side to start a war. In the 20th century, they built the pipelines that connected the Soviet Union to Western Europe, which laid the foundation for Europe's dependency on Russian gas today. And when relations with Russia soured, guess what Germany did? They increased Russian gas imports. This peak in 2017 followed the invasion of Crimea, but even Germany is coming to terms that economic ties aren't sufficient. They made the historic decision to cut all direct gas imports, and they're now letting go of their historic military restraint. They want to command the greatest army on the continent, but is this a better strategy for peace? Or is it a provocation towards Russia? This is Germany's military comeback with hindsight.
Die Bundesregierung wird zukünftig alle finanziellen Mittel zur Verfügung stellen, die die Bundeswehr braucht, um konventionell zur stärksten Armee Europas zu werden.
Germany's military was once feared for its ruthless technological efficiency, but it has become a bit of a joke. But the new chancellor is showing a different posture.
Hey, this is the video's opinion, not mine.
Deutschland ist zurück. Deutschland leistet seinen großen Beitrag zur Verteidigung der Freiheit und des Friedens in Europa.
So I did a deep dive in official documents and statistics to give you some context to this historic U-turn. And at the end of this video, I'll show you exactly how Germany is going to spend its billions on defense. But first, let's start with a bit of history. In the years following World War II, Germany was divided into two rival states. Both were deeply embedded in Cold War blocs. East Germany became a Soviet satellite state. Formally, they were independent, but its political parties were tightly controlled by Moscow, and Soviet troops were stationed here. West Germany, by contrast, was democratic and had more room to shape its own policies, but they had NATO troops on its soil. The agreement was that neither East nor West Germany would pick up arms, but that wouldn't last. The Cold War was starting with Germany at its center. The Soviet Union started training an army in East Germany that stood under tight control of Moscow. And in West Germany, a few years later, they created the Bundeswehr. The number of military personnel increased sharply in the 1960s and stood at just below 500,000 for the duration of the Cold War. Their army was never designed to operate independently. It stood under NATO command, and it was huge. In 1970, they had 495,000 military personnel in peacetime, but they could have access to 1.3 million reservists in times of war. This was the largest army in Europe, far ahead of the British and French. And in addition, West Germany was packed with foreign troops. The border with East Germany was divided into defense sectors, and each NATO member was assigned its own combat sector. This was called NATO's forward strategy.
Was Hungary part of the Soviet Union? Am I watching this correctly? Hold up. So Romania was part of the Soviet Union. Hungary, Czechoslovakia, Poland. Wow.
Member was assigned its own combat sector.
That's crazy,
This was
man.
called NATO's forward strategy, and it made the border between East and West Germany the front line of the Cold War. But diplomatically, West Germany had a very different posture, especially from the 1970s and onwards. Chancellor Willy Brandt wanted to normalize relations with Eastern Europe in a strategy called Ostpolitik, Eastern policy. He encouraged talks over confrontation and to strive for peace by doing business. Wandel durch Handel, change through trade, became the new emblem. This was welcomed to some extent in the Soviet Union. They had discovered vast fields of natural gas, and they were hoping to sell this to countries in Western Europe. Germany had the technology, the Russians had the gas, and so they made a deal. Pipes for gas is how the media picked it up. Germany provided the pipes for building a pipeline crossing Ukraine and Czechoslovakia to reach Germany. For this work, they were paid with gas, and this deal laid the foundation for Russian gas exports to Western Europe. Willy Brandt created the political atmosphere to make such a deal possible. He was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1971, and the pipes for gas deal started Europe's long-term reliance on Russian gas. In the 1990s and the early 2000s, other pipelines were built through Belarus and the Baltic Sea, which reduced the importance of this infrastructure through Ukraine.
Wow.
This worried Central European countries, as well as the United States. Russian gas imports reached an all-time high right after Russia's invasion of Crimea, and when they invaded Ukraine, they were at a near-historic high. It became clear that this economic relationship wasn't sufficient to dissuade Russia from pursuing military action, and some started to doubt whether the underlying philosophy was perhaps crooked. Germany had a similar stance with China. Since 2016, China had become Germany's largest trading partner, overtaking the US after decades of being in that top spot. It's very different from Russian gas, but it's similar in that it follows the same underlying post-war philosophy that trade can lead to peace. And now Germany is picking up arms. They are going to spend hundreds of billions of dollars over the next couple of years to drastically transform their military. The changes that they're making are quite remarkable, and I'll walk you through them in detail. But first, a quick word from our sponsor. Over the years, trade has become an increasingly large part of the country's total economic output, with a peak in 2022, when 89% of Germany's economy consisted of trade, and China became Germany's largest export market. Just like with natural gas from the Soviet Union, the choices were pragmatic. The Soviets had cheap gas, and China's boom created a huge market for German export.
But I mean, oh man, I don't know. I don't understand the approach, but it's interesting to see how it played out, you know, in today's environment. I mean, it did make sense, right? It makes sense in a weird way, but technically it didn't. It didn't, because I think it's the concern of Russia and NATO, right? Like NATO expanding to the east. Russia didn't like that, but at the same time, I control you guys' gas. So it's, I don't know, man. That was weird.
And
I don't know, man. Let me know what you guys think.
Was a kind of peace strategy. If your economies are tied together, no one has an interest in starting a war. But on this, Germany often stood alone. That first pipeline ran through Ukraine. It was criticized by primarily the US, who warned of Germany becoming too dependent on Russian gas. Subsequent pipelines that bypassed Ukraine were criticized much in Central Europe because they were now missing out on transit fees, and they saw this critical infrastructure in Ukraine as a deterrent for Russia to pursue military action. But something odd happened in 2014.
Russian troops spreading out throughout the strategic Crimean Peninsula.
In Crimea, the Russians are in control.
Energy is really at the front and center of the conflict that we're seeing between Russia and Ukraine.
Russia invaded Crimea, and this badly hurt relations with Russia and Europe. But contrary to what you might think, this led to an increase of German imports of natural gas.
Wow.
The invasion happened in 2014. And 3
But
years
do we
later,
really do we really know that Russia was the one that invaded Crimea? I thought was just local folks just having a civil war. Let me know what you guys think.
Germany imported an all-time record of Russian gas. Ukraine at that time was still the main transit country for Russian gas into Europe, and Germany and other EU states feared that the conflict would lead to supply disruptions. German companies increased direct imports from Russia to build up extra reserves, just in case Russia would cut its flows through Ukraine. And this exposed a weakness in Germany's long-term strategy. Their focus on commercial cooperation overlooked geopolitical risks. Their economy was now deeply intertwined with that of Russia, and that limited its freedom to act against Moscow.
Russia has invaded Ukraine by land, air, and sea.
Germany says Kyiv is now free to use Western-supplied weapons to hit military targets deep inside Russia.
In the upcoming weeks, we will send 12 of the most modern armoured howitzers to Ukraine.
Germany's cultural identity is defined by caution. The country had long sought to lead by example in Europe by limiting its own public spending. They were hoping to inspire its neighbors to do the same. They have strict fiscal rules embedded in the country's constitution, but now they are getting rid of some of those. They sent heavy weapons to Ukraine, which is an active war zone, which had long been taboo. And its direct natural gas imports came to a screeching halt. Russian gas still finds its way to Germany through LNG and through other countries, but this was very significant. It shows that the mindset in Germany is shifting. The ideas of engagement, dialogue, and interdependence over direct confrontation are becoming less prominent in German politics. And similarly, Germany's attitudes towards defense are changing. If we look at Germany's defense spending and we zoom in on these last couple of years, we can see the real significance of this increase. It went from 1.3 to 2.1% in just 2 years.
That's a lot.
That's a 61% increase. And the target now is to reach 3.5% by the end of the decade. We're getting back to Cold War levels of spending. And the question now is, what is Germany going to spend all this money on? Spending this kind of money is incredibly challenging in a country like Germany, and that is because of its stringent bureaucracy. And here's one example that I found.
Oh, look at that mount.
In 2011, reports broke about Germany's main assault rifle, which failed in prolonged combat. When the barrel overheated, the rifle lost accuracy. But it took 5 years for the army to officially acknowledge this problem, and it took another 7 years before a new rifle was commissioned.
Wow.
And this happens all the time. It was decided in 2013 that helicopter pilots urgently needed new helmets. And it took over a decade before a contract was awarded.
So what is it? Okay, so what is it about German bureaucracy that makes these things take so long? It's really, let me know, does it really benefit Germany to have this type of bureaucracy? I just want to know.
Summed it up well.
Damn, that 15 years
Germany's
is crazy.
military defeated by an army of bureaucrats. But at least they'll get more money. Their 30-year record budget of over 90 billion is expected to increase to 160 billion in 2029. And a part of this money is going to people. A major strategic disadvantage of Germany, as well as the rest of the EU, is the size of its military. Russia has by far the largest army in Europe. Even Germany's historic army size of 500,000 doesn't even cut it close. They are hoping to expand the size of their armed forces from 180,000 troops to 260,000 troops by the mid-2030s. So part of their increased defense spending will go to salaries, but most of it will go to modernizing their army. The Navy is expanding with new frigates.
Yeah, those are not good numbers.
And submarines. And billions are spent on increasing air power.
Of course, the difference is that currently Russia is in a war, right? So they are in a war kind of economy. So we cannot compare both.
The attention goes to the big ticket purchases of fighter jets, helicopters, and the purchases like the Poseidon, aircrafts that are developed for the Navy and that are used for surveillance and anti-submarine warfare. But they're also spending billions on stockpiling ammunition and building a layered missile defense shield. They are buying mostly American and Israeli systems to intercept incoming long-range ballistic missiles. And they're buying mostly European systems for the short range. On top of this, they're buying more tanks and vehicles. And they're investing in improving its infrastructure, both physical and digital. And all of this is tied together with a comprehensive marketing campaign to recruit new personnel. This rapidly increasing defense budget requires Germany to get rid of some of the many restraints that they have on public spending. They need to change regulations with regards to spending and borrowing money in a sector that has become infamously sluggish. Germany is cutting its economic ties with Russia and it's reducing its military dependency on the United States. They are the biggest economy in Europe and they already have the biggest military budget. These events might have woken up a sleeping giant, but is this the road to peace? Or is this a step towards a new Cold War?
Alright, Cold War 100%, I'm sorry. Yeah, a Cold War. That's what we are right now. And listen, they have, man, I didn't know that the Russian army has so many people. But again, comparing both countries, one is in war and the other one is not. At least Germany is creating some kind of urgency, and they're willing to take, into consideration to step into the plate, and hopefully that is making sure that they can implement some new regulations, or less regulation, I would say, to increase their military personnel, which is very important. I think that's a great idea to really take this thing seriously. I would say personally, but I might be wrong. You guys are gonna let me know in the comment section below. The bureaucracy is a problem. Based on what I'm seeing, bureaucracy is a problem in a lot of sectors in Germany. It is a problem. Let me know what you guys think, guys. I will see you next one.